Sup guys, so in this video we are going to discuss this statement, whether this statement is true or not. I think most of you haven't answered this correctly, so I have decided to discuss this one. So is this statement is true or false? So all the time check the function. This is the function. This function is continuous over this interval, on this interval, right here. Look at the interval, 1 2 close interval. This function is continuously defined on this interval, right? That means you can find maximum minimum on this, on the close interval 1 comma 2, right? Because that function is continuous on the close interval 1 comma 2, right? So here, if this is your denominator function, right? So denominator takes the maximum value at this point, at 2. So if the denominator gets the maximum value, what happened to the rational function? That rational function becomes the minimum. That becomes the minimum value, right? If the denominator takes the minimum value, what happened to the rational function? That rational function becomes the maximum value, right? So we know that at 1, this denominator function takes the minimum value, right? All right. So this function, we know that this function is continuous on this closed interval. That means we can catch maximum minimum of this function on this interval, right? So if the denominator takes the smallest value, this becomes the function becomes very large, very large, right? If your denominator takes the maximum value, what happened to this function? Becomes very small, right? So we know that a denominator becomes very small at this point 1, right? So when t equals 1, when t equals 1, the denominator becomes very small. That means this 1 over this thing becomes very large. All right. So we can find the maximum value of that function by plugging 1 into this function, right? So 1 over 1 plus t cube plus t to the 5 less than or equal. So we are finding the maximum. The function has the maximum value at 1. So 1, when you plug this number into here, 1 1 plus 1 plus 1 3, 1/3. That is the max. So this one is bounded by 1/3, right? So this maximum value occurs at 1, right? The minimum value occurs at where? At 2, right? Just subbing 2 into the equation to the function, you can find the minimum value. So when you sub this value, 1 plus, so 1 plus 1 over 1 plus 2 cube. 2 cube is 8. 8 plus 2 to the power 5, 32. Yeah, 32, 32, 32, 32. So when you simplify this, you get 1 over 41. So 1 over 41. Alright, this function in between 1 over 41 and 1/3, right? So we know that. So over this interval, on this interval, over this interval, 1 comma 2. This function in between 1 over 41 and 1/3 over this interval, then we integrate these three functions over this interval. So when we integrate 1 over 41, which is a constant, you can pull that constant out of the operator, right? So over 1 integral of 1 over 1 2 interval dt less than or equal integral of 1 over 1 plus t cube plus t to the power 5 dt less than or equal integral of 1/3 times 1/3 times integral of 1 over 1 to 2 t. Right. So when you integrate 1 over this interval, you get 1. This becomes 1. Then this integral, we can see that this integral 1 plus t cube plus t to the 5 in between 1 over 41 and 1/3. Right, this integral all the time in between these two numbers. But in the question says this integral is equal to 1 over 42, which is false, right? This is not true. That means you can say that this one is not true because this integral in between these two values, therefore that one is false. So you can justify your answer like this, right? This function is continuous on this interval, on this closed interval. Then you can find maximum, because this function is, if the function is continuous on a closed interval, you can find max and min of f, right? So the maximum value occurs at 1 because the denominator takes the minimum at this point, and the denominator takes if the denominator takes a maximum value, the function becomes very small, right? Then you identified this function in between these two values over this interval. Then you integrate that one over the interval. Then finally you get this result. This integral all the time in between these two values. But the question says the integral is equal to 1 over 42, which is false. Alright. Hope you understood this method. This one very easy question. So if you are given this type of question, I think you can get full marks easily, right? Don't panic, right? So these are very easy questions. Just because here look at this function is continuous on this closed interval. Because of that, you can find max min value of this function over this interval, right? Then you can integrate, then you can, so here you have this denominator, when the denominator function takes the maximum, what happened to the function becomes very small. When the denominator takes gets very small, the function becomes very large. Right? That's the thing. Very small thing. I think anybody can do this type of question. I think grade 5 student also can do these kind of questions, right? Alright, I hope you understood this one very clearly, and see you next time.